what I'm about to tell you, is more than just that, hey, my boss went to Ukraine, isn't he cool, PR. This is significant, and I will want to tell you just why. Lachlan Murdoch has just visited Ukraine to meet its president, Volodymyr Zelensky, and his team with him, to learn something about the war there and show support, of course, for a nation under Russian attack. Now, until last week, Rupert Murdoch has been the big boss of News Corp, which includes Sky News, Australia's biggest newspapers, papers in Britain, the US, and of course, Fox News, beloved of many on the right. But now, of course, the boss is Lachlan, his eldest son. Now, Lachlan is probably an even bigger introvert than me, and quite modest as well. He almost never grants interviews. I don't know whether you noticed. He stays in the background. But becoming boss comes with responsibilities, including political responsibilities. And contrary to popular belief, the Murdochs do not tell their journalists what to say, which is why, for instance, you get more different opinions here on Sky News than on the ABC, as you saw during the Voice debate. But they can make a statement. Like 2 weeks ago, Lachlan Murdoch making a speech in Australia denouncing this shocking Jew hatred. Another statement now, this trip to Ukraine. Lachlan Murdoch believes in freedom, and not just freedom of opinion. And believe me, it's not spin, he means it. And there's a political context to this. In the US, the far right of the Republican Party includes isolationists, big notice and conspiracy theorists, attention seekers who want the US to stop sending Ukraine military aid. And Donald Trump is, of course, hinting that he could be one of them. If he becomes president in a year's time, Ukraine could be in trouble. What's more, far-right journalists, conspiracy theorists, even apologists for Russian war criminal Vladimir Putin, they are promoting anti-Ukraine sentiment, and not just in America. Now, of course, they include Tucker Carlson, the now fired Fox News host, whose anti-Ukraine propaganda was so poisonous that Russian television stations kept playing clips of him. I say Tucker Carlson was not sacked because of that, although I think he should have been. But anyway, that's just me. Lachlan Murdoch now, though, has made his own statement. He has already donated $1 million to Red Cross work in Ukraine, and on the weekend he went to Kiev with Fox News reporter Benjamin Hall, who had a leg and both feet blown off reporting from Ukraine. 2 colleagues were killed. Zelensky took this opportunity to award Hall Ukraine's Order of Merit for risking his life to tell the world the truth about Ukraine's peril.
Days, weeks and months of a difficult period for Ukraine, but very strong period. Thank you for your big support.
But I think we just hope that there's a real purpose for journalism. So people around the world know what's happening here. And that may come with some injuries and some danger, but that's why we do it, because we know how important it is. So, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now, Lachlan Murdoch and Benjamin Hall and the rest of the team there with them, they had briefings with the Ukrainian government, met religious leaders, laid flowers for the dead. Freedom needs champions, and I am proud that Lachlan Murdoch is one. Joining me from Canberra is Ukrainian Ambassador Vasyl Myroshnychenko. Ambassador Myroshnychenko, thank you so much indeed for your time. You've seen support for Ukraine falling in America in particular, with some politicians of the Republican right wing, among some far-right journalists, conspiracy theorists like Tucker Carlson, who was actually sacked from Fox News. Given all that, what do you see as the significance of Lachlan Murdoch visiting your president?
I think it was a very important visit for Lachlan Murdoch to Ukraine, to see the president of Ukraine have that meeting. The News Corporation and all the companies globally play a very important role in covering the Russian aggression in Ukraine. It's important to keep it in the focus, to keep Ukraine in focus, to keep what is writing and reporting about what is happening in Ukraine, because it has a global impact. It has a global impact on the international security and in every part of the world.
But the thing is, too, it comes in a political context where there are people on the far right, conspiracy theorists also on the Republican far right, that are saying, well, look, Ukraine's war is not ours, we've got to stop funding. For instance, how worried are you that if Donald Trump becomes president in a year's time, the US funding for Ukraine will be cut off?
He was quite silent on that, and maybe that's one of the concerns that that we all have in terms of predictability, what can happen if he is selected as the president. However, I would like to also remind one fact. It was actually when he was the president of the United States, Ukraine got javelins. It was under his administration that Ukraine got these anti-tank missiles, which were so efficient in the initial days of the Russian invasion last year.
Well, let's not give up hope just yet then of him. Meanwhile, of course, there's another war that's taking attention away from your war. That's Israel's with the Hamas terrorist group. How is that affecting your war against the Russian invaders in terms of the arms you're going to get, the necessary support you want?
We definitely see how Russians are benefiting from what is happening currently in the Middle East, as media attention is now currently on Israel and Palestine, whatever is happening there, and it's just something inevitable in a way that media works. Also, of course, the attention of the decision makers in North America as well as in Europe is now also has to be divided to cover two big conflicts out there. So it's not helping us much. And plus, we are getting into the winter and getting ready for those cold days. And Russians are now intensifying their attacks on our critical infrastructure and our power generation, electricity distribution. And of course, when Ukraine is no longer in the news, it looks like maybe the problem does not exist. And maybe it's already gone and the war is over. But it's not. I mean, it's really at high intensity. And we need support now as never before. Therefore, we hope that this could be sustained, because only with that sustained international military and humanitarian support that we can continue defending democracy. We have to always remember what is on the line, and authoritarianism cannot triumph over democracy and war over peace and might over what is right at this time. Therefore, it's important to maintain that support. We are out there fighting for all of you, fighting for democracy, for human rights, and whatever is important here in the free world.
Meanwhile, about the progress of the war, I mean, you mentioned that you're preparing for winter. Parts of the battlefield are really now, you know, the Ukrainian mud that sinks tanks or at least bogs them. That's the end of your summer offensive, your autumn offensive. The head of Ukraine's defence force has been brilliant in resisting the Russian invasion, but has just published, as you know, a surprising 9-page assessment of the war so far. And he said essentially, the war now is at a stalemate. That's dangerous for Ukraine, the smaller nation, unless it can get some technological breakthroughs. How do you read this document?
Russia is demonstrating that they are ready for a protracted war, relying on its own resources, on the war fatigue, and also on its nuclear blackmailing. Indeed, we do need a technological breakthrough to have an edge and to be able to move forward. Just to remind you, the last counteroffensive, which started in early June, we didn't have the air superiority, we didn't have the fighter jets. Also, we still lack many of the long-range capabilities. But in addition to that, we do need some modern mine-breaching technology as well as electronic warfare technology. And our Chief of General Staff has really elaborated quite a compelling article where he's describing that. And I think it was a strong message to our supporters, to those countries who are out there, to work together with us to make sure that we can gain that technological advantage in order to be able to move forward. Being on an offensive is much more difficult, because you have to keep in mind that we have kilometers of the minefields, and the minute you get there, Russian artillery comes, and it's extremely costly to be able to move through those kilometers of landmines out there, especially without proper technology to clear that, but also without the air cover which you need to be able to even attempt it.
You're not getting downhearted about your prospects?
If you ask Ukrainians, we still feel very united and resilient in what we are. We just don't have any other choice, because if Russia stops fighting, it's the end of the war. If we stop fighting, it's the end of Ukraine. So for us, it's an existential war, and we don't have any other option but not to give up. As President Zelensky has rightly said, many commentators or many people who are watching this war, they are expecting some sort of movie where action will be changing very fast and things would be happening. But in real life, it's a bit different. And this is when it slows down. We still need that support to be able to go on.
Ambassador Vasyl Myroshnychenko, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.